Hi, I'm Tom Miggott from Tom Miggott Photography. I've decided to actually get up early this morning to climb a hill, a Scottish hill. I'm actually climbing Lee Pen. It's just above Innerleithen in the Scottish borders, about an hour drive from Edinburgh. And, well, I haven't reached the top yet. The top is actually there. Let me just turn the like this so you can see it. The reason I didn't go all the way to the top is because I actually know the view from there. And it's not that great, to be honest. It's nice to see with your own eyes, but taking a photograph, I find it a little bit poor. I was actually there last weekend when it was all covered in snow here. And I'm not quite happy with the result. In fact, if you don't trust me, well, you can see the photograph showing now. It wasn't that great. The best photograph was probably the one that the GoPro was taking of me while recording a video that I was trying to make, and that failed. So I didn't reach the top. Why? Because as I was coming here, I realized that it was a fantastic view. Now it's gone, but we had some amazing colors in the sky right there. And we have this stone wall here. And it's stone walls all over the place here. And the amazing thing is you won't find a single rock or a single stone in the field, right? They're all used for those walls. And it goes all the way down to the glen. This one goes all the way down. This one here goes all the way down and all the way up and carries on. It's endless. It's amazing what those guys have done. And I just love the composition. I love how the stone wall is just leading us to the sunrise there, and we have some remaining snow sheltered by the wall here. So what did I do to capture this? Well, I've got the 70 to 200 lens, and I'm shooting about 80 millimeters. And the reason is because I want to pull those hills closer to the stone wall, and so that's the reason why I needed a long focal length. I'm actually using filters. I'm using the polarizing filter, although not for its polarizing feature, simply because I'm shooting towards the light, so that would not have any effect. However, this is the new thin polarizing filter from Lee, and it has a very nice warmish tone to it, and so that's the reason why I used it. You don't need to have the polarizing to be active to have this warm tone. And I've used three other graduated filters, two at the top, the 0.6, 0.9, to just darken the sky and retrieve those warm tones, magentas, pink and gold, and one at the bottom of 2-stop soft, to just darken a little bit because we had that light coming here and the snow was a little bit too bright. I just said a soft graduated filter here at the bottom. When it comes to the two for the top, those were hard, simply because when you use a very long focal length like I am at 80 millimeters and above, there's no point of using a soft graduated filters. You won't see it, and you will basically pull the filter all the way through to actually see some effect. So that's why I recommend that you use a hard graduated filter instead. So you see the resulting photograph, and I think it's pretty cool. So for now, I'm just going to wait a little bit. I don't know if I'm going to find something interesting once the sun pips on, or maybe I'm just going to climb all the way up. I don't know yet, but I'll talk to you from the next spot. All right, see you in a bit. Right guys, so I quite like the composition here. I like the stacked stones that recalls what we have at the background, so those two hills, similar shape. I like the fact that there's a cloud just really speeding through in front of the sun there. And I've just tried a 16:9 ratio framing to see what it would look like, and I quite like it. So I just reverted back to a 2/3 ratio to take the photograph. Earlier I told you about the graduated filters, and I'm using hard one when I have a long focal length. But here, because a lot of my scene is in the mist, I don't want to use a hard filter, because I don't want that mist to be the tone to be too strong. So I've actually ended up using two soft graduated filters, the 0.6 and 0.9, and I'm also using a hard one, a 0.6, just for the sun, just for the tip at the clouds there. And it's quite interesting. I'd like to have more light piercing through and bring more shyness to the grass here at the front, but the problem we may end up having is some flare. So we'll see what we get. I'm just going to wait a few minutes. You see, guys, when I tell you all the time to go outside instead of spending too much time in front of your computer, it's not only to take the time to take the picture, but it's about feeling the environment, really, feeling the wind, smelling the dew on the grass, smelling, I was going to say the shit, because there's some sheep shit around here, but just really feel the environment you're in, because if you feel the environment you're in, you're gonna take better photographs. And that's what it's all about, really capturing the emotion, and not just, oh, I've just captured a nice sunset. It's more to it than that. And take the time, and of course bring some food with you, just making sure you stay warm and you stay fed with energy, especially when you do hill climbing. And here I'm just going to take another photograph. The tones are changing. It's really, really nice, and it's getting slightly overexposed now. The sun has pierced through now, and the tones are changing, and it's quite really, really nice. I'm just gonna put this at the front just to prevent a little bit of flare, like this. We don't have flare on it, and yet we do see, oh yes. Alright guys, so I was on my way down when I actually saw this scene. I love, once again, we have this great stone wall, and we've got the snowy tip over there, and the green glen with the green slope there. And it was quite nice when we had a little bit harsher light than it is right now, because there's a lot of cloud mist going. So it softened it, but I'm waiting for the correct moment. So how I'm going to capture this? Well, I'm actually using the tilt shift 24mm. Not that I actually need the tilt or the shift functionality per se. It's just because it's a much better glass than my 24-105. And I'm using two filters. One to just a soft 0.9 just for the sky. Here on the left-hand side, it's a little bit too bright. And one at the bottom and 0.6, so two stops, soft, just to darken a little bit the stone wall here, because as soon as the sun goes straight on it, it's a little bit brighter than the far end of it. And I'd rather starting with a shadow going towards the light. So I'm just gonna wait now for the time to be good, for the light to be good, and then I'll capture the shot and I'll show it to you. All right. Okay, so finally going down, I'm quite pleased with what I got, but we'll see how it looks like once in Lightroom. So, I was driving home when suddenly I saw this, a very, very compelling tree. I love trees. So I pulled over and I basically entered illegally this field. I really hope that the farmer won't mind. I decided to capture this, black and white and long exposure because we've got wind. So how do I proceed? Well, I use a tilt shift lens 24mm. Why? Because that's the best 24mm that I have comparing to the 24-105. And also, without going into too much details about tilt shift lens, because I'm going to be doing a few episodes about that, I'm going to be using a little bit of shift just to make sure that the tree is really straight and fit into my frame. So I also noticed that because the sun is behind the tree, then I'm going to be having some highlight problem. So I'm using a neutral density filter, graduated, 3-stop, hard. That is basically at the same level as the wall behind the tree. So then once I got the correct exposure, what I'm using is a 10-stop neutral density filter from Lee, the big stopper. I put it up front and that gives me an exposure of ISO 400, 1 minute, f8. Why f8? Well, because I don't need anything else to be in focus beside the tree. So f8 is good. Why ISO 400? Well, because I don't want to stay here too long. ISO 400 gives me 1 minute, ISO 200 would give me 2 minutes, but ISO 100 would give me 4 minutes. I don't need to stay here for 4 minutes. So I've already taken the shot. Here is what we get. We're going to go home and we're going to edit it. There's a few things to remove. We're going to remove the telephone poles as well as the pumping station right there. I can't remember if it's in the frame anymore, but if it is, we're going to remove this in Photoshop. So I'm going home now and I'll see you there after a warm meal and a warm cup of tea, and we see what we can do with the photograph that we captured today, how we can edit them. All right, see you in a bit. All right, guys, so we're back here in the office after a good shower and a good meal, and all the pictures that you've seen previously, they were all unedited, right? And what you see here now on your screen are the resulting photograph that I've developed. Initially, I wanted to do the development in front of you, but when I started recording this for the French version, I realized that the overall video would actually end up being 50 minutes, and that was just too long for me. And the thought of doing it all over again for the English version was just too much. I'm a little bit lazy, so I decided that instead I would explain you what I did to develop those photographs. And you'll see there's not much at all. So let's dive in. Let's pick the easiest one first. So let's go with this one. You will see that the original was this, right? The main difference between this one and the resulting photograph is simply that I've actually used the white balance here selector, and I just went and clicked on the snow. That just gave me that tone that you see here. That was it. Then afterwards I decided to actually darken this whole area here, the wall and the foreground. And if you can see, I've actually used the adjustment brush, and all I did, as you can see here on the right side, I just brought down the highlights, brought down the shadows, and a little bit of clarity, simply to add a little bit of shine to the hay or the grass right here. And that was it. Then on the overall image, as you can see, I haven't done anything. There's nothing whatsoever. And then the only action afterwards was to sharpen it, and you see I just went 49 and then the masking, just so only the bottom part would be sharpened and not too much the rest. So that's it for this one. Really simple. And you see, that's the whole point. When I say that you need to spend more time on the field than in front of your computer, this is it. This is because the time that you spend in the field is the time that you don't have to spend in front of a computer. And that, to me, that's just key.
because I love photographing, but I hate being in front of a computer. So the next photograph is this one. So initially it was this. So same again. I selected the white balance, and I basically got a reading of the stone right here. And then I had to play a little bit because it was a little bit too red. So I got this. Obviously, this is a 16:9 ratio, as you can see. So I decided to actually keep the sky and not the bottom part of the image. Another thing as well that I've done is adding a graduated filter over here, but it's very, very light, and the only reason why I've done that, it was to achieve the same brightness as the rest of the foreground here. It was a little bit too bright for my liking, so I basically brought down the highlight and a little bit, half a stop on the exposure, and that's it, nothing else. Then when we go down here, again, the highlight down, that was mainly for the sky because of the sun right here, and then the sharpening. Truth be told, this images was really interesting when I captured it, when I saw it with my own eyes. I still find it interesting though, you know. We have, as I said, we've got these rocks here reminding us of the shape that we have of the hills. That still works, but for some reason I'm not that as much as excited as I was when I captured it. The next photo was this. And really what I've done is, the first thing to me was here. We had a flood in this region, and so there was a little bit of water here in the glen. And to me, although it could recall the snow that we've got on the summit here, to me it was a little bit too strong, too visible, and that was even after using a polarizing filter, which worked greatly because the sun was on the left here, so we were almost not 90 degree, but close to 60, and that worked enough. But to me, it was still too much visible. So what I've done was here, as you notice, it's no longer there because I've used Photoshop and I just removed it, cleaned a little bit here. You notice I didn't clear the whole field. I still want to keep this interesting shape here in the middle. I cleaned a little bit there, but that was it. And here there was a pole, and I just removed the pole. The overall tone, that was using the white balance again. I added a little bit of contrast, a little bit of clarity to get some shiness there. A little bit of graduated filter here at the top. And if you're wondering why I'm using graduated filter when I've already used physical graduated filter in front of my lens, well, you know, it's not because you're using one that you cannot use the other. And it's, I would also say, I would go as far as it is because I use the real graduated filter in front of my lens, then I can actually use the one in Lightroom, because if I hadn't, then my sky would not just need highlight going down, it would need the exposure to go down because this whole part of the sky would be burned. And here it isn't. And it isn't because I use a neutral graduated filter in front of my lens. Here I only decided to use the highlights down just to reveal more of the clouds, but the picture was not overexposed to start with. I mean, look at this here, it wasn't. So obviously I've also did a 16:9 ratio, decided that the sky was less important than the bottom of my frame, and then overall, as I said, contrast, clarity, and then went down to do the sharpening. Then the final image. When I shot it, this is what we got. The reason why it's blue is because I was using a 10-stop neutral density filter from Lee, which cast a little bit, which has a blue cast to it, which is fine because it's an even one. And if you don't like it, you can actually prevent having it using your changing your white balance in your camera, Kelvin. You would actually basically remove this whole bluish cast. Or you can do it in post-production very easily. Obviously, I told you in the video, there was the pump station here and the light pole. So, when we go here, interestingly, actually, truth be told, I told you I wanted a black and white photograph and a long exposure. So when I edited it, this is what I got. So I cleaned the poles, I cleaned the station, I cleaned a little bit of the ground here because there were a few branches, dead branches that were on the ground, and they were a little bit too shiny in black and white. I brighten the back here using the brush slightly. And you see the shadows, I basically brought the shadows up. Then on this one here, what I did is I basically painted over the branches and the trunk, and basically, as you can see, the highlights went down, but the shadows went up. Clarity went up as well to get the shine again from the little white particles that we've got in the big branches. And that was it here. Then overall, some contrast, the highlights down, but the white up. And why did I bring up the whites? It's just to get some more shine over here in the cloud. And you know, even if I click here, you can notice it's not burned out. So I revealed more of that sun, which to me I quite liked. I played a little bit here just to bring the grass more, and that was more the green and the aqua. Those were the two. You also notice that here the photograph is a little bit blurred here, and you know, don't be too crazy about don't be too picky about the blurriness of those little branches, because you're capturing a long exposure, so you're capturing movement. It's bound to have some movement, right? We're not talking about bridge here, and it's all right because it's the back ones. It's not the front one. You can see the biggest one are really sharp, and unlike what I said in the video that was about 1 minute at f9. ISO 400, you notice that here I was shooting f27, f9 400. Simply because right after the video I've actually taken another shot which I thought was better. And what I thought was better was at 1 minute the branches were a lot more blurry branches, and plus the whole light situation changed, so I was able to actually shot that picture with half the time. So that was alright. Strangely enough, when I actually edited this photograph in black and white, I quite liked it, right? It's interesting. I wish I could have the heels lower than the branch, but I could not, because if I was doing that, I was actually changing the whole proportion, and it was just not possible. Sometimes you just can't. But I decided to actually do it in color. And I just found that this color version is actually quite interesting. Here you notice we've got some red parts here, but it's fine. It's just the highlights, so I could just tone the highlights down, and that's it, it's gone. And I just found that it's actually quite interesting. There isn't much that I've done here. Maybe a little bit more clarity. I revealed the back over here again. The tree was already done. It was a treatment from the black and white version. And you notice it's a virtual copy here that I've done. Here I was able to actually use the same principle, bringing the shadows up, the highlight down, and that was the same thing. And I think I also played, you see, with the blue, which was actually not the blue from the sky, but it was actually the blue from the branches here. And that's it for this photograph. So, don't know what you think of this, but I'm pretty pleased of this overall day. You know, let me just bring up all the photographs again. I'm quite pleased with myself. I think you know, it was a good day, and if I had to pick one or two photographs that I think will actually make the gallery on TomMegottPhotography.com, I do believe the first one. The first one is I love the first one. The first one is really cool. The third one as well, I really love it. It's brilliant. I love how the tree actually goes all the way to the bottom of the glen like this. I really like it. I like the tone. I like the more time you spend looking at the slope here, there's some really interesting, almost painterly feeling because of the kind of mist that we had. As I said, the second one is not as great as I thought it was going to be. Still interesting though, but maybe it will make the gallery. I'm not sure. Bottom one, it won't. It won't because it's nice, but it just doesn't pass my my standard approval. I'm happy I took it, but I'm not that excited about it. So let me know what you guys think. Which one is your favorite? Which one you don't like? And I hope you really got the message that spending time outside really enable you that to first to get some great shots, but also the great shot that you make from your camera, you'll notice that they don't require much work once you're back to the computer. And I think, to me, that is what photography is all about. Photography is not about spending hours and hours in front of your computer, unless you're a wedding photographer. But then we're talking about 300 images. Here we were only dealing with well, actually 4 different images. So that's it for today. Let me know if you like this type of videos where we start in the field and we go back to the computer and talk about development. Let me know what you think. If you discover this video through YouTube, don't forget you can watch all these pictures as well as the original one in the article that I write on tommygoodphotography.com. The link is in the description. Please give me a thumb if you like this video, and please go to the article and leave me a blog. No, leave me a comment directly in the article, and if you subscribe to the article, then I can actually reply to you and you'll be notified. So until then, this is Tommy Good saying, if you like it, well, capture it. Ciao.